morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode in my Suffer Well, Surrender to Rest in a Transition season. My name is Mia Soul. I am a poet, author, and creative wellness practitioner. You are in for a treat tonight. I'm so glad that you are joining in with us tonight. So, welcome. Over a year ago, the phrase suffer well dropped in my spirit. And I had to pray on it and ask God, what exactly does suffer well mean? And what was shared with me is that suffer well means you're navigating difficult circumstances and enduring hardships with grace. It means to find purpose behind adversity and challenges. It's viewing your challenges as an opportunity for growth. The tests, trials, and hardships is actually an invitation for developing resilience, hope for the future, refining your character, surrendering and trusting God in the process. It means to rise when life or the enemy is trying its hardest to break you down. It means not giving up in the process and finding your strength, your power, and your light. So you're going to hear the story, the journey of our guest speaker for tonight. Welcome, Miss TK. Hey, girl, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing fine.
I am so happy to be sitting down with you and to hear your journey. Um, in tonight's episode, we're talking about resting in the storm and healing through art. Okay. So, Miss TK, I know her from the poetry community. I think I met you about 3 years ago through the Artist Network, which is a DMV community for artists, not just poets, but majority of them are poets. And I met her through there about 3 years ago. And whenever I see her at an open mic, we always show each other some love. So I'm really glad to be sitting down with you to hear more about your journey. Okay, so I'm going to read your bio. And thank you for those that are viewing with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Let us know in the chat where you are tuning in from. We want to get to know you and we want you to engage in our conversation. So if you ever hear anything that you that resonates with you, please put it in the chat, and we will, read the chat as well throughout tonight. So Miss TK is a Baltimore native, a dynamic force in the DMV art scene, blending poetry, storytelling, and stage presence. With 25 plus years in the arts, she's a poet, international keynote speaker, songwriter, and fashion designer. A published author of Vibrations of Love, as well as a 3-time contributing author. As an art wellness coach and co-founder of FYBR, she empowers others through creativity, balancing motherhood and entrepreneurship. She uses art to inspire, heal, and uplift. Wow, you have an amazing bio. And I can't believe you've been in the art scene for 25 plus years. That is amazing. So, since we just read your bio, and we are talking about going through a season in our lives where we may have gone through any challenges, and we knew that we wanted to change the situation in our lives for the better. So I want to start off by knowing in your time frame did you know that you wanted to change for the better, and what triggered that change for you?
So I would say, growth is just continuous. Like we're always
Mm-hmm.
growing. Um, and I was a mom at 16, so I definitely had to grow fast, and I had to continue to grow because my kids was growing up with me.
Mm-hmm.
But what sparked my self development more so, I would say not too long ago, would be about, I'm gonna say about 4 years ago, where I actually was in a process of healing, and I wanted to raise my vibrations, and that's where my book came into play because I started doing some type of like a 30-day challenge of raising my vibrations. And then I started learning about the spiritual aspect of myself, like getting to know myself, because I've always been a spiritual person,
Mm-hmm.
religious person, but as being spiritual within myself was about 4 years ago, actually learning who I am.
Mm. Okay. Yes. And that's one thing that I am learning on the journey, because I agree that growth is evolving. It's a continuous. And once you reach a certain level in your growth journey, there's like something else that's revealed to you that we need to work on pertaining to self development, and also when it comes to our personal endeavors. So I heard you say
Sorry,
that,
my cat is
huh?
just my cat came over and she was messing with the light.
Oh, okay, Miss Cat. Fur babies.
Yes, the fur baby.
Yes. And I see someone in the chat. Thank you, Miss Peace, for joining us. Yes. So tell us, when you were on your journey, you mentioned, as far as like for the last 4 years, that you had to learn who you were becoming. So explain a little bit of what that means. Like, what did you have to learn more about yourself? And what were some things that like amazed you on your journey of becoming?
So I would say that being a mom, I always wanted a family,
Mm-hmm.
and relationships seem to just kept falling apart, and I was wondering, you know, I wanted to see where I was going wrong in those situations. And raising my vibrations, I had to learn self-love.
Mm-hmm.
And older people, your mentors, they will always tell you about having self-love for your, loving yourself, prepare yourself for a partner and all of these things. And it's just like, I don't care about any of that. I just want a partner.
Mm-hmm.
And it took up until that point where I said I have to change some things because things is not working out. And I know I'm a good person, but why is things not working out for me? And so balancing my energy, just learning how to just love who I am, enjoy being by myself, just actually like being my best friend, because you actually have to love yourself more than somebody else loves you. So if you love yourself more, you're not going to allow anybody to hurt you. You're not going to be in certain situations that doesn't vibe with you, that doesn't feel good. You're going to exit those places. And so it always starts with self-love. And
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn how to love myself. I had to learn how to take care of myself. Because I'm a mom, because I'm a business owner, I'm always looking out for everybody else's interests, considering everybody else, and then I'm drained at the end of the day. So I had
Mm-hmm.
to learn how to put myself first. Because if I put myself first, then I'll be a better mom. I'll be a better neighbor. I'll be a better worker, a better business partner, a
Mm-hmm.
better teammate, and a better partner for, for my spouse to be. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to really learn how to love myself. And
Mm-hmm.
that was the journey.
Yes, and just like when it comes to our growth and healing journey, self-love is a journey also. And I
Mhm.
loved how you mentioned that it had to start with you first,
Yeah.
loving yourself. And last week we talked a little bit about, with the previous guest speaker, about like unlearning some habits,
Mhm.
in order to become who you are
Mhm.
as you get older and wiser. So
Mhm.
definitely self-love, taking care of yourself and being there for you, choosing you. And that's what I really think
Mhm.
about what self-love is about choosing you, what's going to work and what didn't work in the past,
Right.
So I can truly relate when it comes to
Mhm.
that self-love, and having those boundaries, like maybe the partners you were with in the past, it just,
I didn't have any boundaries.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I had some, but I won't give myself some credit. But my
Mhm.
boundaries was as to how I can keep them, and to the point where I was burnt out to the point where I was like, I just can't do this anymore, you know. But it took for me to just be so worn out and so tired. But if you just have boundaries within yourself, if I treat myself good, then I'm not going to let my partners treat me bad. So I
Yeah.
had to just start with the boundaries. And last year was a very pivotal moment because of that. I was going through a lot of mental health issues. I was 39, which is the same age that my mom was when she passed away. And
Mm.
I really spiraled mentally. I went into a deep depression, and I had a lot of people depending on me. I had my children. I have 3 daughters, but then I also had a team of 8, and everybody was looking towards me to be the motivation, to be the hands on, and the mouth on, and the everything. I was the everything to everybody, and I couldn't even show up for myself, let alone show up for them,
Yeah.
because I was grieving. And grief comes in stages,
Yeah.
and not only stages, you get grief hiccups. You never know when you're going to have a grief hiccup. And my mom, she passed away 18 years ago. And so, I thought like, well, maybe, I didn't been with the therapy. I didn't did all these things. But last year, being the same age she was when she passed away, it spiraled. And then I
Yeah.
had a close grief counselor. She actually passed away suddenly. And it was just a lot. So it's like you see yourself succeeding in art, and as a speaker. I had went to Greece last year, but at the same
Mm.
time, with having success, I was also dying in the inside,
Mm.
and so it became to the point where this month is really special to me, because I actually had to check myself in this month last year into a mental hospital.
Okay.
And that was a place I never wanted to go, because there were mental health issues in my home growing up. I was a child caregiver to my mom who had a mental illness. And so I always strive to make sure that I did all of the things so that I wouldn't have to go that route. But going to the hospital actually was where I saw my purpose, because all the things that we were learning in the hospital was things that I was doing, that I was actually helping people to do. But I actually had to just sit down. It was like God had to sit me down so
Mm.
that I could take care of me. Like, I literally had to take care of me.
Mhm.
And so this is a special month,
Yes.
it's a 1 year of healing, of a different kind of healing, because you can heal different aspects of your
Yes.
life, but
Very
when
true.
you start working on your mental health, that's one aspect of your life.
Mm.
You could, to the surface, to everybody else, you look healed, you look okay, you look like you're fine, but nobody knows you the way you know you. You
Yeah.
know, nobody sleeps with you. Nobody is in your head the way you are. You're the only one who knows exactly what's going on with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important to know, to be aware of who you are.
Yes, and that's one thing I was going to mention. And thank you so much for your transparency with your journey within the last year. And one thing that I share with you offline is that last year, and this doesn't happen every year for me, but last year I kept hearing a word in my spirit, which was courage, courage,
Mhm.
because it's so hard to talk about your story
Mhm.
publicly,
Yeah.
with others. But I just want to say, keep going, because I guarantee you there's somebody that resonates with what you're going through.
Mhm.
You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because, like you said, on the outside, everybody looking in, it's like, oh, wow, you're doing so great, which you
Mhm.
are, but
Mhm.
deep down, it's like you had that awareness that something wasn't right,
Mhm. Mhm.
So thank you for, and even in the chat, thank you, Peace Within, for saying, glad you saw the signs. Yes, I'm
Mhm.
so grateful that you saw the signs now also. And then looking back at where you are a year ago and where God has brought
Mhm.
you today.
Yeah. Yep.
So that is just a celebration all by itself. And that's
Yeah.
one thing I think about when we're celebrating life. It's not just, Mother's Day, birthday.
Yeah.
Yes, you want to celebrate those happy moments, but then also celebrate the moments where you made it from where you
Yeah.
were last year. That
Yeah.
is a milestone all by
Mhm.
itself,
Yeah.
and to be standing where you are now, like you said, that's where you found your purpose. And that
Yeah.
kind of leads us into our next question, because we are talking about rest in the storm. How will
Mhm.
you define rest, and why is rest important for Black women?
Lots of times we think of resting as just sleeping, let me just get some sleep. But
Yeah.
rest is also staying still, you
Hmm.
know, that's actually grounding yourself, actually balancing out, they call it the work-life balance, and we're in this era of hustle, 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 but hustling is you gonna burn out. Not only are you gonna burn out, you when you burnt out, you're gonna die. Just literally, you're gonna die, and so resting is so essential because we're always working, especially Black women. We
Yeah.
we we recover everybody, even in the workplace. You go to your manager, you ask they ask you, what do you think? They're your feedback, and then they go and they actually use your feedback as if it came from them. So we're
Hmm.
always giving, giving, giving. Being a parent, being a wife, being everything to everybody.
Hmm.
And that was one thing that I struggled with last year was people pleasing,
Yeah.
because I can't please everybody. And the thing is the more you give people, the more they don't appreciate it,
Hmm.
And so it's like only give what you can or that you're willing to, because if you give of yourself so much, you're actually can become resentful, because it's
Hmm.
like you're expecting, if I gave this much, why isn't it not coming back to me? So
Yeah.
if you don't if you already know, if I do this and I don't get something in return, don't do it. So
Hmm.
resting literally um is just being still,
Hmm.
knowing when your body is tired. Your
Hmm.
body will tell you, but that's
Yeah.
you have to get to know who you are. You got to know the different signs of your body. Even resting is not just physical, it's mental, it's spiritual.
Hmm.
You got to meditate to hear God. If you can't sit still, how can you hear him?
Yeah.
Because he speaks through your soul. He speaks through dreams. He speaks through that thing that just keep bugging you. I need to do this. I need to do this. This is on my heart to do this. That's God talking to you. But if
Hmm.
you're rushing and running and you're barely sleeping, and you're not doing anything for yourself, you won't hear him talk to you. You,
Hmm.
you won't hear it.
And that's so true. Going back to what you stated as far as like resting for Black women, we're so accustomed, maybe because we saw our mothers doing that, our aunties, our
Mhm.
grandmothers doing that. So it's just passed down that like you just got to keep going, going, going,
Yeah.
and wearing multiple hats,
Yeah.
and living in multiple roles. So it's
Yeah.
like you said, like being drained at the end of the
Mhm.
day and people pleasing. We wouldn't know until it's like we get to that point where we are burnt out and we're like, okay, enough is
Mhm.
enough. I
Yeah.
experienced that 6 years ago, and I completely, God had to like break me down. And for
Yeah.
me, being broken completely down, He had to build me back up because I was constantly on the go. And like you mentioned, if you're so busy doing everything else and not taking care of yourself
Mhm.
inward. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's more than just, I love how you say it's more than just physical, getting some sleep.
Mhm.
No, because when you are so busy during the day, your mind is not resting at night.
Mm-mm.
It's not,
Mm-mm.
right?
Mm-mm.
So what can we do to be aware of the signs in our body, mentally and spiritually? So
Mhm.
oftentimes it takes us being broken completely down, burnt out, and then we're like, okay, I don't have to do it like this anymore. There
Mhm.
are other ways, whether, going for a walk, but there's definitely different tools that we can incorporate to reduce the stress, reduce the anxiety, to reduce, physical health problems also, so all of that starts with mental. So I
Yeah.
just loved how you just mentioned that. And when you notice that even now, if you have moments where your schedule is like really hectic, what are some tools that you use that can help you to bounce back?
So planning is really important. Um, and taking things off your plate that can wait. Sometimes you're just going to have to say no. Like today I had a meeting to go to, and then I know that I had the podcast at 7. So I had a job in between that I said, well, can I move you until tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that trying to do everything that I'm trying to do, I need to have the mental space
Yeah.
also. It's not just me trying to be here and there at the same time, but also like, am I able to actually cognitively think about and prepare myself for tonight? You know, it that is really important. So actually, just I'm trying to keep keep up.
No, I get it. I get what you're
I'll start
saying.
talking and I'll start spiraling. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's so important to plan out things. Also, I kind of like to balance out my day. So I love Chat GPT. I would say like these are the things that I need to take care of. By me being a full-time entrepreneur, I have multiple different types of jobs
Yeah.
because I have to have multiple streams of income. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of different things at different times. So ChatGPT helps me to organize my life,
Mm-hmm.
and it by me using it so much, it's familiar with, making sure you balance and, getting some sleep. So yesterday I knew it was a free day for me, but I wanted to do some extra work. Well, when I woke up, my body wasn't feeling that. So
Mm-hmm.
because of that, I couldn't, and I just had to stay in bed, all day.
Mm-hmm.
So I work from home. I did some income producing activities, even though I wasn't working physically. So it's just knowing your body, knowing when to say no. Everybody doesn't have that privilege to work for yourself, but if you
Mm-hmm.
working a job, knowing the hours that you can work, knowing what you can do within a day. We sign ourselves up for a lot of different things, but
Mm-hmm.
we got to sign ourselves up for also resting. So
Yeah.
just planning out, balancing out your things, but also for me, it is most important to um, put in my mental health
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
I burn out fast,
Mm-hmm.
and if I burn out, if you are confused or if you cannot think straight, you're going to make poor decisions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it is cognitively important for me to not make poor decisions. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything that I do, if I'm just in autopilot, the type of work that I do, I can't be in autopilot.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work, so I have to be cognitive of what's going on, and that requires me to make sure that my mental health is stable, and if my body is not matching with that, then
Mm-hmm.
I have the luxury now. Sorry, my kids up there making a lot of noise.
Oh, okay. You're
I can
fine.
hear you. But it's very important that I balance that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that because, yes, I can understand just having multiple tasks to do. And it's like, can I fit everything in one day?
Yeah.
So I love the fact you said, balance, because I
Hmm.
didn't learn what balance meant for me until like a year or two ago, because I'm a type
Hmm.
of person, I'll cram everything in one day. I can do everything in one day. No, we can't.
Hmm.
Because even like yourself, like, especially like, it's coming up on a 3-day weekend. Sometimes I may have something planned. Okay, I'm gonna get everything done because we have an extra day. I can get some
Hmm.
things done. But I'm like, if it doesn't get done, it doesn't get done. It's okay.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we have to prioritize what is most important. Is this
Exactly.
something that I have to do immediately, or is this something that can wait until
Right.
tomorrow, until next week?
Right.
So definitely giving ourselves that grace, because that was something about myself early in the beginning of my journey. I've been on my healing journey for 12 years, since
Mhm.
2014, but I would just throw everything, together, and then I'll be
Mhm.
wondering, like, why is some of my work like unorganized? Like it
Mhm.
doesn't seem like work that is prepared
Yeah.
better, So that's why it's like, yeah, I can't do what I
Mhm.
did before, to be productive, to be, functional. So I
Right.
definitely, prioritize when it comes to mental rest, physical rest.
Mhm. And even
Absolutely.
in the Bible, Jesus talk about how, you know, let today be today. Only worry about today.
Yeah.
Tomorrow has its own issues, and
Mhm.
so I literally live by that. Like I have no choice but to live by that. Like if the deadline is that day on Tuesday, I got a lot of other stuff to do. I'm just gonna have to go by the deadline. That's the
Mhm.
deadline. So I set deadlines for myself personally, but I also go by certain deadlines as well. Because I can't worry about that. And lots of times everything works itself out.
It
Sometimes we
sure
be worrying about
does.
stuff and it just works itself out. So you don't even have to really worry about things. It
Mhm.
it it, it just works out the way it needs to.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same thing with me planning things. It doesn't necessarily go the way I plan it, but at the end of the
Mhm.
day, it does work itself out.
Mhm.
And then I think about, like, why was I so worked up about it?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
one thing that I had posted at the end of the year, when I'm a very reflective person, and I had posted, I said, if God gives you the idea, He's going to give you the ability to see it through. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because like
Right.
and because we are both creatives, I'm sure just
Mhm.
like you get a lot of creative ideas. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, if He's giving me these ideas, He's going to provide the resources and the ability to see it
Right.
come through. But we have to
Exactly.
trust Him in the process, which it can be difficult because we don't know the unknown. But He
Mhm.
knows. He knows
Right.
exactly how it's going to turn
Exactly.
out.
Exactly.
So, and then part of what we're talking about tonight not only is resting in the storm, but finding healing through the arts.
Mhm.
So, tell us, like, when did poetry find you, and when did you realize that you were a poet? And then, how did you transition into an art wellness coach as well?
Okay. So I've been writing poetry since I was a little girl. That's why I said I've been on the art scene for 25 years
Mm-hmm.
because art has always been something I've done in school. I've always been inside some sort of art. So art has always been a part of my life. My mom was also an artist as well.
Okay.
So I've went to fashion shows. She was a cosmetologist. I was always around art. But I've always, wrote. When I was little, I loved the diaries. And so every time I would write in a way that it was poetry, but I didn't realize that it was poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would go to random open mics, like if somebody had a gathering, but I really didn't like actually go to open mics until I would say it was about what 2022.
Okay.
I went to a Bus Boys and Poets, and I was like, "Wow!" My best friend actually told me about it. She was like, "You should just go to Bus Boys and Poets." But I had been writing poetry for a long time. Since high school.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I really, when they start to introduce you to that. But yeah, so I went to Bus Boys and Poets in November 2022, and it was the one that was here in Baltimore. And
Okay.
when I went, I didn't know, I did not know that Baltimore had some of the best
Yeah.
poets in the country.
Yes,
Um,
they do.
we win championships, we go all around the world. And that's where I was. I was there where some of the best poets was, and that's when I heard about Charm City Slam, the poetry party, CJ's Place. I met all of these people, that were part of the art community, and I hit the road. I just hit the road, and also I think listening to how they performed, the performance part,
Mm-hmm.
because writing poetry is can be different than performing the poetry.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so I like the performance part of it. I like the way slam poets perform. Um, and so, watching them and studying them, I improved my poetry as far as to
Mhm.
perform it. I still write poetry that's just probably for your books.
Mhm.
I may not perform it, but performing poetry, where I can actually feel it,
Yeah.
is something that, was something essential to me. So that
Mhm.
started in 2022, where I was really, going gun ho with it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So when you started writing poetry, what were you mainly writing about? Was it about like your journey, or did you have like a specific topic that you started writing about, and is it the same now to this day?
I think that my poetry is consistent with like life experiences. I have to feel my poetry.
Yeah.
I can just, I mean, I can write about random stuff and I can write about other people's life and stuff, but in order for it to resonate with me, it has to be something that I experience, that I actually feel. So when I was younger, I was writing about, like my life, my childhood, um, relationships, me as a woman, different things, a growth as far as that.
Mhm.
And it still has been consistent
Yeah.
because when I'm emotional, that's when I feel it, And so, yeah, so it's
Okay.
it's consistent, yeah.
And
I'm
going
not I'm
back
not
to
a I'm not a writer that writes about like world conditions and stuff like that.
yeah.
That's I'll say that for somebody else, but yeah, I I like talking about life experiences and
Yeah.
relationships. Mhm.
And that's an area that I can relate with also because when I'm writing, it's something that I directly went through and
Yeah.
experienced, you know.
Mhm.
So for me, I've been writing. I haven't written as a child, but I
Mhm.
started writing at 28,
Mhm.
29 when I started my journey because I had nobody that could understand what I was going through. Like I'm a very it was hard for me to express how I felt, you know,
Mhm.
verbally, but I'm able to write it, you know, so eloquently on paper with a lot of colorful vocabulary, you know, because I'm
Yeah.
writing about my heart, right? So I'm
Yeah.
writing everything out on paper. And I remember in 2014, well, actually the end of 2013, somebody, I shared it with them and they said, wow, you need to go to an open mic. And I said,
Mhm.
oh no, that was my first time going to open mic. And my first time also was Busboys and Poets, but it was
Okay.
the Hyattsville location because Baltimore wasn't open yet.
Okay.
And so Busboys will always be home for me because that was the first open mic that I ever went to. And I've been to other, you know, open mics around the DMV. And my mom to this day, whenever I go to open mic, she's like, "Are you going to Busboys tonight?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She just thinks all open mics is Busboys, you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going." You know, I just also write about, you know, things that I'm going through because
Yeah.
I tried writing something for somebody. They liked it, but I didn't feel like it was like
Mhm.
truly, you know, good because it wasn't, you know, my story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I love how you said about the performance part because writing and performing it is two different things. That's an art
Yeah.
all by itself.
It
You know what I
is.
mean?
Yeah.
And that's an area of growth because, like you said, growth is ongoing. That's an area that I am still working on when it comes to the stage and the performing part of it because that's something that we have to grow into. You know, it
Yeah.
doesn't come natural. I mean, it doesn't come like just like this, you know, so
Mhm.
got to work
Yeah.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
because everybody is not a performer. They
Hmm.
you got different types of poetry. You have, people who just write poetry, you have the slam poetry, and you have performance poetry. And
Hmm.
so I don't think that's in the order that cuz so I performed in Women's of the World Poetry Slam. It was the first
Hmm.
time I ever slammed, and I'm not a slammer.
Yeah.
I'm a performing poet, but I'm not a slammer,
Mhm.
and I always tease and say I was 93rd. So some people they was like in the 20th, and I'm like,
Mhm.
look, I was 93rd, just and
Mhm.
I was happy because I learned so much.
Yeah.
It's very stressful competing, but
Mhm.
yeah, I'm not a slam poet.
Mhm.
Oh, God.
Yes, and like you said, it could be very stressful because other
It
people are
was so
judging your
stressful.
work that you work so hard on,
It
you
was
know?
so stressful. It was so
Mhm.
stressful. I actually went home crying.
Oh.
Like I cried because you're around a lot of different women, Women's of the World Poetry Slam that does this since they were teenagers,
Mhm.
performing poetry since they were teenagers, and they're competing for money, they're
Mhm.
competing for something, so it's very competitive. And I don't have a competitive spirit.
Yeah.
I don't like competing for anything. I like to share, I like to be authentic, but I don't like to compete with anybody or anything.
Mhm.
So yeah.
And I like the fact that you did it and put yourself out there. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So now you're able to say, what you like. And I loved how you broke down the different types of poetry
Yeah.
because not everybody is a performance poet.
Yeah.
You can be a poet that reads. And I know I still read from my paper, after
Hmm.
10 plus years, I still read
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and
And
that's
some poets
okay.
say it's okay. You're
Hmm.
just as good if it's memorized or if you're reading
Hmm.
it. The
And some of the
words
best
don't change.
poets, who we would say were like, the most popular ones, they still read.
Yeah.
I know that I took that pressure off of me last year because
Okay.
I would, I had a coach, a mentor that was like, you have to know your you need to know your poems and stuff like that. And if you don't, just have it in a notebook, and I wanted to push myself so much, but that's
Mhm.
even stressful. So it
Yeah.
all depends on the mood that I'm in, how my mental health is, where I'm just gonna have to open it. I wrote a book. It's in the book. So,
Mhm.
if I wrote something yesterday and I want to share it, it's all about, what resonates and what is needed to be said, because you could prepare to do something and then it's like that doesn't sit with the crowd. So
Mhm.
let me change myself up and share something else. And that
Mhm.
may be in a book, so
Yeah.
yeah, I don't put that pressure on myself anymore to try to figure it out. I'm a
Mhm.
poet. In the
Yes.
end,
At the end of the day,
yeah, I'm
you
a
are a
poet.
poet and
Yeah.
you're great at what you do. You know what I
Thank you.
mean? So, and thank you so much because poetry has helped me so much,
Mhm.
and I'm just like, what would life be like without it? So I'm just
Yeah.
like, and I loved where it's taken me and where it will take me in the future. So
Mhm.
because it's expanding, like you
Yeah,
said
exactly.
earlier, like you've met multiple poets on the poetry scene that are traveling across the world,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And you even had the opportunity of traveling. And tell us a
Mhm.
little bit like what was that experience like being to travel overseas and to talk your story? What was that experience like for you?
Um, so I am a free spirit, so I'm always going on the road. Like
Okay.
I'm always performing everywhere I go. So that's I when I went to Greece, I was speaking internationally, and it was talking about my life, here in Baltimore.
Mhm.
And so if anybody follows me, it will be, on my YouTube channel, my actual speech from Greece. But it was so transformational, and it's interesting. Like when you go out of the country, being a black woman, and people are not used to seeing black people on a daily basis, they take
Mhm.
pictures with you.
Ah.
So I was just watching on YouTube like a short, and the lady was like, "Being a black woman, you get, people ask you to take pictures," and I was like, "Dang, I wonder what my picture is of the people that took pictures with me," because she was like, she was in a newspaper. I was like, "Dang, I wonder what I was in," like did they post me or something? But yeah, it was so interesting. And I always talk about my Baltimore accent, and it
Mhm.
comes out more in certain words I say, or if I'm comfortable enough, I will just be, that's my dialect. I'm from Baltimore. And
Yeah.
so I always say, if you can't understand what I'm saying, read my book, like because when I was speaking in Greece, it was actually a segment from off of the book that I was in a book anthology called Persevere. And so It was just pretty much talking about my life, here in
Mhm.
Baltimore, how I overcome different things, being a teen mom, finishing high school. I was the first on my father's side to finish high school. I was the first on my mom's side to go to college. And then just breaking generational curse, with having children.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, I'm sure that was an eye-opening experience for you to be able to, tell your story internationally. And I know that there's more forthcoming for you because this
Yeah.
is just the beginning for you.
And I
Yeah.
took my oldest daughter, the one that I had at 16, with me. So she
Mhm.
actually watched her mom on stage, and I had a
Hey.
PowerPoint. So, she actually saw it firsthand,
Mhm.
me speaking about my life and having being a mom. So
Mhm.
yeah.
And I know that, your daughters are looking at you and say, wow, look at my mom. Look at
Hmm.
all she's been through and she's here today, so you
Yeah.
are truly a story of resilience, strength,
Hmm.
power. Like when I think about the definition of suffer well, that is what I think about for you is like, taking your pain and letting it lead you to create something beautiful that's within you,
Yeah.
because it was already within you. You've been doing art, like you said, it was all around you your whole
Yeah.
life. So it's
Hmm.
like, okay, what was birth in you due to your struggles? And that was one of the questions. And correct me if I'm wrong, but what was birthed in you was a speaking, right? Becoming a
Hmm.
speaker and an art wellness coach.
Hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So tell us, what are the benefits of being an art wellness coach, and what are some of your offerings as a art wellness coach?
Sure. One second. My daughter is. Hurry up. um. Sorry, y'all. I'm a
Okay.
mom. I'm a mom.
Mom
Um.
duties don't stop, even though you're in a
Yes.
podcast. So I love it.
Even though I told him I was going to be. But yes, me. So art is coping for me. Um.
Mhm.
I've always used art as coping, like with the poetry, with crafting, with sewing. All of those things was ways that I used to cope with my mental health, because like I said, I was a child caregiver to my mom. I'm growing up. So, it's interesting that you're actually helping your parent,
Mhm.
balance out their mental health. And so that takes a toll on you. And so you need an outlet. Everybody needs an outlet because energy is transferable. So if
Mhm.
you go around somebody and they, very anxious, then that's a learned behavior. So how
Yeah.
do you calm down from that? And so I had to learn different grounding techniques. Um, so I would walk a lot, um, just being very physical. Those are ways that I had to calm down my own energy and calm down myself. And so
Mhm.
by me doing that and different jobs that I worked on, and I was a Head Start teacher, so I had to be around children, and being around children, you had to be calm, but I also did art with the kids.
Nice.
So that was something that, I was able to use my artistic side, but also my way of calming people down. And
Mhm.
then I went from working with children to actually working in oncology. So I worked in oncology for 13 years with cancer patients. So
Oh.
that same instinct of relaxing and making sure, because these people are coming in there dying, their
Mhm.
family members are with them. It's a scary diagnosis that you receive, a short period of time that you have to live. And so how do you comfort and cope, with these ones, and using different grounding techniques,
Mhm.
having different materials in the waiting area. I was responsible for the board, at that facility. And so art has just been something of caring for people, and then, helping them cope through the process, but also using art as a way of healing it.
Mm.
Art is used everywhere. You
Yes, it is.
think about um, the Titanic, you know, as the ship was going down, they were playing an instrument. So it's art
Mhm.
everywhere. We use art, in different ways. So yes, art has always been my form of coping. And so being an art wellness coach, having teammates, that has different walks of life, everybody has gone through something different. And it's very important that you have some compassion and empathy for these people, because
Yeah.
people respond how they were raised. They most of the time are doing it out of survival and
Mhm.
autopilot, and so when you are surrounded by mental health and different people that are sick and children, you
Mhm.
have a different conscious. You're awakened. So you're around you're able to identify stuff that the normal eye is probably not able to see. And
Mhm.
so with those experiences, those lived experiences, art wellness was birthed, and then me actually going to the hospital last year and actually seeing the tools that they were using. I'm like, well, I'm already doing this. So this actually solidifies what I'm already doing. I just got to put
Yeah.
a name to it. So lots of times the things that we do that we're good at, or even the things that we got in trouble with. Like if you got in trouble with running your mouth when you was younger, you may be a good lawyer. You may,
Yeah. That's
you
the
can
truth.
debate, you can,
Uh-huh.
so it's different thing. And I've always been a talker. Like since I was a little girl, all I did was talk, 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 talk. And if it's good, I'll talk too. So, being on here for hours is nothing. I can talk for hours. But, so actually using those lived experiences, but also using what I also do for myself,
Yeah.
because I have to cope. I have at the end of the day, you see the kids coming in and out. It's just like everybody's coming. That's a lot on me that I have.
Mhm.
You don't know what they experience, so all that energy is coming in. You have to decompress. At the end of the day,
Yes.
you have to ground yourself, and so
Mhm.
is that's where art wellness comes in. I'll later on I may doodle. I'm working on a project now where I'm painting. So it's just like I just had different types of elements that I use. I may get in a writing spell, where I write. I do a lot of writing through Chat GPT, because right now, by being the beginning of the year, I really focus on the rest of the year, just
Right.
having
Mhm.
systems in place. So right now, I'm focusing on systems, but then something, a quote may come in my head, or
Mhm.
something poetry. Like yesterday, somebody wrote a question on Instagram, and as I was writing, responding to the question, it sounded like a poem. So I made sure I
Oh.
highlighted that portion that I put, and I put it in my notes section, because I'm going to use that again. I do not
Mhm.
waste stuff that I say. I got to
Yes.
reuse that. So yeah, that's going to be a poem.
Mhm. Save
Gonna be-
that for later. Yes,
Yep.
save that one. And I can't wait to hear it when it turns into a poem. Yes, and thank you for sharing what was birthed in you, because we are our first client, we are our first
Yeah.
students, and art, like you mentioned, if you had to learn what grounding techniques and coping techniques work
Mhm.
for you, and the
Mhm.
same for me. I started writing I was already an adult pushing 30, but it
Mhm.
was so therapeutic for me. Writing
Yeah.
is like my first therapy,
Yeah.
like I had life coaching, and I wish you were around when I started my healing journey, because I would have contacted you, but it's still never too late, because
Nope.
we need it ongoing on our journey. Just because and
Mhm.
healing is not just like a one-time fix,
Mm-mm.
because like you said, especially when it comes to grief, it's
Yeah.
it's like a wave. It comes and goes at different times
Mhm.
throughout our lives and months, so we definitely need to find those techniques that work for us during a season, and even if it no longer works, because what I was doing when I first started my healing journey from 2014 to 2019, it was no longer working. And I was
Mhm.
noticing that's when my transition was happening. That's when I realized, because God has taken me to a new level.
Yeah.
Everything was falling apart, but everything was falling apart because I was trying to do everything on my own strength,
Yeah.
instead of really utilizing the tools. I was trying to
Mhm.
do it all on my own. And I'm like, okay, it's not about that anymore.
Mhm.
So how can I grow from this? And because you're helping yourself,
Mhm.
you're ultimately helping others to heal their
Yeah.
journeys also. So
And
I love
every
that. It's
coach,
necessary.
every coach and every mentor needs their own coach and mentor. We're
Yeah.
never not growing. So you always have to have somebody else who is coaching you and who is mentoring you. And they have their coach. So it's always was always continuous growth. Everybody needs somebody. We just can't just say, well, yeah, I reached the top. So
Yeah.
there's nothing else for
Yeah.
me to learn. No, we always have to keep growing. You never know everything. So I
Yeah.
still have a coach. I still have a mentor. I still have those things to help me to keep growing, So
Mhm.
I still have a therapist, and she be like, she wants to discharge me so bad, but I'm like, look, if I got insurance and they paying for it, just go ahead.
Exactly.
It's cool. But
Mhm.
yeah, so I just keep those things, and she my place where I go at and I speak that I can't speak to nobody else about, because
Right.
I didn't talk myself. My friends are sick of me talking to them. I
Mhm.
need another outlet to talk to.
Mhm.
Who can listen to me other than my friends.
Yes. And our friends, our community is always going to be there for us.
Yeah,
But then, like you said, it's good to have other people to have that perspective. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Especially in a situation, it will be different from like a friend or auntie telling us versus somebody
mhm,
that, in a professional standpoint, like,
mhm,
let me think
yep,
about this. For my girlfriend, I don't know if that's some advice I really want to use right now. I just wanted
right,
you to listen to what I'm going through and not really give
yeah,
me that advice, because sometimes that may be poor advice, but
yeah,
maybe from a therapist perspective, it may be a little bit more logical.
yeah,
So I love to have that balance, talking to your friends, talking to your
mhm,
aunties, your sisters, still have them in your corner, because they know you
yeah,
probably more than, your therapist, because they've been
yeah,
and watched you at different seasons of your life. But then when it's time to like really get deep and they may not understand or have the technique or
mhm,
tools, that's when it's like continue to have those people in your life too.
right, right.
I agree. Okay, Miss TK, how you
Mhm.
feeling? This is a great conversation.
Thank you.
I
I
know
hope
you,
so.
yes, I know you talked about you are a three-time contributing author. And
Mhm.
do you have a poem that you would like to share with us that, resonates based on this topic or anyone in general?
Let me do this poem.
Okay, let
Let's
us
see.
hear some of your work, honey.
Let me pull it up. Let me see. I don't think I got my books nearby. Like I wasn't prepared. I
Oh,
wasn't
that's okay.
prepared.
It could be a snippet of
Let
something.
me see. Mhm. One minute. Let me go here. Sorry, y'all. Let me see.
That's okay. Take your time. And while you're thinking about the poem, um, how has, well, you kind of already talked about it, like it helped you to process your journey of like what you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
And if you feel compelled to share, definitely do so. I don't want you to feel,
All
pressured.
right, I had one.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. It's called Hey Sis Bloom. And
Okay.
this was in one of the book anthologies that I was in. I contribute a poem to it. Hey sis, the power of your tongue has been silent too long, but now you speak. You speak with confidence, with knowledge, with ancestral wisdom. A voice so strong it shakes the weak-hearted. Those too afraid of your mightiness try to shrink you. They condemn your words, make you believe you are less than, unworthy, too much. But sis, speak loud. Speak your truth. Speak for the ancestors whispering in through your belly. Speak, sis, speak. Because through your words, you birth generations who are building healing legacies, rich minds rooted in emotional intelligence, grounded in love. Sis, you are enough. Your voice is sacred. Your heart is free. Stop shrinking so others can feel tall. Stop
Hmm.
shaming your sister. Hold space for her to grow. Because when one of us bloom, our communities shine brighter. Our roots reach deeper. The power of our words water the gardens that the world tried to burn down. When just one of us bloom, we feed the whole garden. We plant more and more flowers, not just surviving, but blooming in unity, in wholeness, in peace. So, sis, speak. Speak with dignity. Speak with kindness. Speak with love, because your voice is the seed we've all been waiting for. Boom.
Yes, that's what we do. We snap, we snap. Yes, go ahead, Miss TK. I felt that one.
Right.
Miss Bloom. Yes, that was
Yeah.
beautiful. This next question I want to ask you is, what advice would you give yourself when you first started your healing journey? What is advice you would give your younger self?
To not worry, that
Mm-hmm.
everything works itself out. I had so much anxiety about life, about bills, about everything. Even that works itself out, you
Yeah.
know, and to just love myself more, just love myself more, you know. It doesn't matter what other people say about you. It doesn't matter, trying to, you can't please anybody more than what their capacity is.
Mm-hmm.
So you just, keep that focus on yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that was beautifully stated. Yes, not to worry, because for me, I struggle so much with that of just worry, and excessive worrying turns into anxiety because I knew
Mm-hmm.
I was shifting and I had
Mm-hmm.
absolutely nobody in my community that understood what I was going through. So I was
Yeah.
alone for
Mm-hmm.
years. This is like
Mm-hmm.
a good 8 to 10 years. I was completely alone on my journey. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't until the pandemic, because I feel like a lot of people had an eye-opening experience during a pandemic, but that is
Yeah.
when I was like, you cannot be silent anymore. Get on Instagram, get on Facebook Live, and just do something. Tell a poem like you just
Mm-hmm.
shared, and that's when other people started opening up to me when I started
Yeah.
sharing publicly,
Yeah.
you know?
And I had a mentor say to me over the weekend about being rejected. You know, when you are authentically yourself, when you're not people pleasing, you're going to be rejected more because you don't fit with the norm.
Yeah,
And so being rejected, being alone is an identifying mark that you're in alignment to your purpose, until finding your own tribe, because your voice is not going to speak to those ones if you forcing it.
hmm,
You can't force yourself in environments that you don't belong in. So you're going to
exactly.
feel rejected, you're going to feel alone.
Speak that.
Hmm.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that really hit a core for me. Because one thing when I was praying, even like last year, I was like, because my spirit keeps stretching me. It's
Hmm.
uncomfortable to be stretched, completely
Yeah.
uncomfortable, because it's like, okay, God, you're telling me to take leaps of faith, but then I'm worrying about bills and stuff like that. Because during my
Hmm.
transition season, 3 years, approaching 3 years in May, I left my career because I was also a teacher, and I use
Hmm.
art a lot of times with my students to help them calm down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, if this is calming them down, and then I started sharing it with other teachers to help them calm their students down and stuff like that, to the
Hmm.
point that I didn't have no behavioral problems. And going back, I also started teaching. I think I was like 23 in Head Start. So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, that's the big thing. I started teaching in Head Start, West Baltimore, Sandtown community, and Fulton Avenue. That's
Okay.
where my very first job right out of college. I was a Head Start
Okay.
teacher. So yes, I can relate, because that's where my art was birthed also, and I didn't even
Yeah.
realize it. Because with
Yeah.
young children, that movement and play, we're singing, dancing with them, reading
Hmm.
stories, and we have to be so dramatic and animated when we're
Yeah.
reading a story to them. And I was
Yeah.
like, looking back at my journey, I'm like, art
Uh-huh.
has always been with me,
Uh-huh.
before I even started my healing journey. Because now looking back on it, like you said, everything is in alignment,
Yeah.
like even though I felt that rejection from
Hmm.
others, but God was with me the whole time, because he
Yeah.
knew me when I was in my mother's womb. Like he knew
Mhm.
what type of journey I was going to go on,
Right.
so like the challenges that we face, nothing is wasted, because something is being birthed and something beautiful is coming out of it,
Mhm. Mhm.
so I'm
Yeah.
so grateful to be sitting down and hear so much about your journey and how it really resonates with my story,
Oh.
and I know that's going to resonate with other viewers also, because that rejection is not for everybody. You
Mm-mm.
know, keep telling your story. And that's the same thing I'm telling myself. I'm telling you, but I'm using that
Mhm.
own advice. Keep
Right.
sharing your story. It doesn't matter, how many viewers you're getting, as long as
Mhm.
you're sharing your story and you're standing in your truth,
Mhm.
because God is setting you up for greater things, and there's so much
Yeah.
more to come from you, and what you're
Mhm.
doing. And that's a good leeway for us to end with a meditation. We're going to end with a quick 2-minute meditation. So when you all are ready, you can go ahead and get in a comfortable position where you are. For those that are viewing on our YouTube channel, find a comfortable position and begin to settle into this practice. You can close your eyes or lower your gaze. Take a deep breath in and out. Take another deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Let it fill and expand your lungs. Let it out slow and steady. Breathe in even deeper than before, feeling the breath enter. Notice that this is a good and welcoming feeling. Continue breathing, focusing on each breath as it enters and fills you. Your eyes are closed. Everything else fades into the background. All that remains is a deep breath in and a slow breath out. Notice that each breath in brings soft, peaceful light that expands into your center. Focus on this light, and with each breath in, let peace expand within you. We allow ourselves to be open to accepting the invitation of rest. As Matthew 11:28 says, "Come to me, all who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest." Now listen to the calmness of our breath, silencing the racing thoughts in our mind. Surrender means to let go, submit. Take a deep breath in through your nose and a breath out through your mouth. Let go of any tensions in your muscles and just allow your arms to hang free beside you. Take everything that you heard tonight and allow divine grace to enter into your life. There will be moments in your life when all you see is chaos, disconnection, and disharmony. And in those moments, you must remember that God is reordering your life to match who you are called to be. Wait, not in fear. Wait, not in worry. Wait, not in fret. But while you are waiting, just know that things are moving forward for your behalf. And know that this is a necessary part of your birthing process.
Mhm.
Release the grip of stress, release fear and worry that it has on you. Use this time to slow down your body. Use this time to rest and clear your thoughts. I'm going to end with a few affirmations. I rest in the stillness of God's peace. My heart is at peace because God is in control. God's peace guards my heart and my mind. I repeat, God's peace guards my heart and my mind. God's presence is my safe place. I find peace because I trust in his promises. I replace all thoughts that are not like yours with thoughts that are true, honorable, pure, lovely, and admirable.
Mhm.
Take another deep breath in through your nose and a soft exhale through your mouth. When you are ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you so much for allowing me to guide you with this brief meditation. May the rest of your evening and the rest of your week lead you into a weekend, that is filled with ease, rest. Don't just think about having a 3-day weekend, but let this 3-day weekend be intentional for you to find some rest, courage, and freedom. And before we leave, Miss TK, tell us what projects you're working on and tell us where can we find you.
Yeah. There are several things that's coming up. I'm a part of a mending clinic where I'll be fixing different garments. That's going to be in the Harlem Park area on I think it's the 21st or the 24th. And it's with Station North Tool Library. Also, we'll be traveling to North Carolina for book launch,
Okay.
book release. Will be the third book that is called Over, a book anthology that I'm a part of. So that will be posted on my social media as well. My social media is Miss TK on Instagram. You can just Google it and it'll come up. So MSTEE.KAY on Instagram. And on YouTube as well. No dots, just MSTEEKAY. So you can find me that way. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, please follow Miss TK. Follow what she's doing. She's doing great things, and I can't wait to see what's forthcoming. And there's an event happening, like she mentioned, next weekend. So if you're in the Baltimore area, please come through. And if you're able to go to North Carolina, please come out and support. We love to hear all great things that's happening for this new year. And like you mentioned, that you're in a season of planning for more things to come. So this is, just the beginning of the new year. So I'm really excited to see what else you're going to be working on throughout this year. If you want to hear more of the meditation, I do offer a biblical meditation every first and third Sunday at 7 p.m. So please follow me at Me and Soul Speaks and go in my bio so you can find the Eventbrite link. It's 30 minutes long on the first and third Sunday. So this MLK weekend, I'll be having meditation. So if you want a longer extended meditation, please come through. And yes, that's all that we have. And thank you again, Ms. TK, for sitting with us. And everyone else, you have a joyful, restful rest of your evening.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Okay.